looking at economic influences. So the main things that we have to consider when we're looking at economic is the consumer income and how that affects businesses, unemployment, interest rates, and tax rates. So let's have a look. So all of these things here, this area, bad at drawing a circle, those can either go up or they can go down. I've just done it in the direction that would be best for the business and best for consumers. So increasing consumer income, that means consumers have more money to spend, so they're usually going to increase their spending, particularly on luxury products, and the impact on the business, more demand, higher revenue and profits, so that's all good. Decreasing unemployment, mainly really good for good for consumers, because then they have more incomes and more spending, so that's very similar to that point there. Good for businesses because they get more demand. However, it might be harder to find new employees because there's fewer people unemployed. So unemployed means that people don't have a job, but they want a job. So if there's fewer of those people around, it might be hard to find employees. You might have to also increase the wages and the salaries to try and attract new employees because there's a smaller pool of potential candidates. Decreasing interest rates. Interest rates is the cost of borrowing money. So for consumers, that means lower payments on any mortgages or loans that they have. It's also cheaper to borrow money. There's less incentive to save because the interest rate is also a reward for saving. So all in all, that will lead to more spending. And again, we've got that same impact there. For the business, it's also good because they might have loans, so they'll have lower payments on their loans, and that lowers their overheads or expenses. It means it's cheaper to borrow as well. They might be able to expand, and again, they will get more demand because consumers have more demand because they've got higher income. And decreasing tax rates as well. Good for consumers, good for businesses, so more income, more spending, and therefore more demand for the business. And the business, particularly if corporation tax is reduced, they'll have more profit available to invest, and they may be able to expand and grow. So looking in a little bit more detail in tax, because I mentioned a few different taxes, we've got, broadly speaking, two main types of tax: direct tax, and that is a tax either on your income or the profit, and indirect taxes, which are taxes on goods and services. So the main ones that we need to know about are income tax, so that's on employees' wages or salaries. Corporation tax, that is a tax on the company's profits, and VAT, which is an indirect tax, and that's on most goods and services, and that's currently 20% at the moment. So another part of the course, just have to recognise that over time the economic climate of the country does fluctuate, and here's a diagram. You don't need to know this or reproduce it for the exam. Real GDP is like saying average income, and over time we've got there, and it tends to go up and down. Overall, we tend to find that economies do get richer over time. If we think about our ancestors hundreds of years ago, they would have been poorer, had a lower standard of living, had a lower income than we do now, but it does fluctuate on that trend. So when it's this kind of like peak time, we call it a boom, and that's when we have increasing consumer income and we have decreasing unemployment. Businesses tend to prefer these times, and recessions are when we have falling consumer incomes and therefore we have increasing unemployment as well. So businesses don't tend to prefer those times. There are certain exceptions to the rule. We found that Lidl and Aldi have done really well out of recessions because people kind of trade down. They stop shopping at Tesco and Sainsbury's, which are a bit more expensive, and they look for cheaper alternatives. So you might find that Aldi and Lidl's boom time for them is actually in a recession. So it does depend upon the business you're looking at. So let's have a look at some past paper questions. We've got Graham here, who runs a hotel on the Yorkshire coast. And his business has been affected by economic factors. 2 marks for how is the business affected by a rise in unemployment in the UK. So I would say fewer people going on holiday, so less demand for his business. He may find it easier to recruit employees though, and might not have to offer as high wages, so that could be a good factor for him. A fall in interest rates in the UK, so people paying lower repayments on their mortgages, less incentives to save, cheaper to borrow, so they might be going on holiday more. It's also cheaper for him for his overheads if he does have a loan out. bit of a harder question here. So Haven Holidays, caravan park, evaluate the impact on economic factors on Haven Holidays and its consumers. So again, one of those like two-part questions where you have to think of both those stakeholders. So consumer income, it didn't really in the case study tell you what way these things were going, but these are the 4 economic factors that you need to be aware of. So if consumer income goes up, then we should lead to increased demand for Haven Holidays. If the unemployment goes down, that's going to be probably better. Interest rates go down, people are spending more, they're able to borrow more. And tax rates, we really want them to go down. That's going to be the best thing for the business. However, you do need to consider the business a bit. It is Haven Holidays is the largest in the UK of caravan parks. We do tend to find that when there is a recession in the economy and people's incomes has gone down, they tend to take fewer foreign holidays, and they do have what we call these staycations, so going on holiday in the UK a little bit more. So Haven might find that they actually have a little bit more demand when consumer incomes are falling because people switch from those foreign holidays. If that recession went on for a long time, if it was a really deep recession, what we call the depression, went on for a few years, people wouldn't be going on holiday and unemployment would be, very, very high, and unemployed people are not going to be thinking about holidays at that point as well. So there's a little bit of evaluation, kind of a bit more of a sophisticated look that you can look at this for.